Steelers.
Pittsburgh do this all the time. I've been playing them for 13 years. When you avoid the middle, they go into the middle. It's never changed.
And welcome back, Steelers Nation. I am your host, Mr. Roy Countryman. This is the 17th episode of the Steel City Sermon presented by Blitzalytics.com. We're going to go ahead and jump right into this, folks. It was somewhat roller coaster of sorts in the Dallas game. We know every week we're getting the team's best swing, and who would have known that Orlando Apollo great Garrett Gilbert gave us our money's worth last week until, ultimately the better team did win out. But 8-0, first time in Steelers history. I did misquote last week on last week's episode that it happened one time before. They did lose in their 8th game. I apologize for that mishap. But first time in team history, we are 8-0. We're coming up on this week's game against the Bengals. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead and jump right in here on the prelude portion of the video here. And wow, kind of a mixed bag here. But I think we just need to take a step back as Steeler fans and appreciate what we have under center. This, by all accounts, is a very similar team to last year's team. Outstanding defense, but not so sure where we would have been if we wouldn't have had Big Ben under center. So Big Ben is the difference. That is the reason why we're 8-0. Last year we would have lost a lot of these close games, especially last week's game against the Cowboys. He wound up coming out and putting his Superman cape on after getting injured by his knee or knees, if Ian Rappaport's right, who knows. But and he just put that cape on like Superman, brought us back and got us a W there, and it was quite impressive because early on he was out of sync and out of sorts, and he was 29 of 42. He did put up another 300-yard game. He only averaged 7.3 yards, so you can still see that deep ball is still not in his system yet. It's not saying that he doesn't have the arm strength. It's just for some reason it's not hitting on all cylinders when they're going down the field. But the passer rating's up there. He had a 113.8 passer rating. Like I said, second straight game he led us back in the fourth quarter to put us ahead here for a W. It actually moved him up all-time inside the top 5 for comeback victories. Daniel Valente from Steelers Depot just posted that here a little bit ago that with last week's game, he moved up into the top 5 all-time in comeback wins there. So you can see what a franchise caliber quarterback can do for you, Steelers Nation, and be thankful because we wouldn't be seeing that same type of reaction as we would have last year because the one series we did get to see our old friend Mason Rudolph, it was ugly. I would have much rather seen Josh Dobbs and all the talk this week because Ben ultimately got placed on COVID list, which we'll get into here in a little bit as well, but everybody was talking about who you're going to start and is going to be, Mason or Josh Dobbs if it's not able to. I think Mike Tomlin's words were very telling in the press conference saying, I wouldn't be opposed to start anybody who would help us win the next game. So I think that might have been a little concerning to the coaching staff and the front office and how disarray Rudolph looked in his one series. It was not even close to some of the passes that were getting on mark there. And it really makes me suspect for the future here for anybody that's on roster behind Big Ben. Josh Dobbs, to me, is somebody that I highly value, especially due to his mobility and his smarts. I think he's somebody that, in my opinion, should be the number 2 quarterback. Mason Rudolph does have the talent. It's just, for some reason, after last year, he's just not there. The whole situation with Myles Garrett and the struggles that he had afterwards, getting benched for Duck late in the season and then coming back and then ultimately getting hurt. I just think he's not a fit here. And if it was me, I don't think you're gonna see them go out and try to draft a guy because Ben, by all accounts, as long as he stays healthy, I think he wants to play multiple years yet. way past the ones he's actually on here, 3 to 4 years. You're probably not going to get a first or second round quarterback because a lot of these guys' contracts are up at the same time. Big Ben and Mason Rudolph's contract are both at the same time, so don't be surprised. Being how strong Ben has looked coming back from his injury, we don't see a year or two tacked on to help for salary cap purposes, as we know all the issues that are going to be coming with that after the season. But getting back on topic here, Big Ben, this game, like I said, 3 touchdowns. Best part about it, he's not turning the ball over, folks. We should definitely be appreciative of that. He's hitting the open receiver. He's not having to force feed targets a la Antonio Brown when he's in this offense. Juju Smith-Schuster is the alpha in that group, and he just does not make qualms about having the block or maybe only getting the targets over the middle. He's genuinely happy to see other guys here really benefit around him. And this also as well, if you take out the interceptions of that one game in Tennessee, where we kind of seen Ben get back to gunslinger Ben, he would only have 1 interception on the season. So think about that a little bit, Steelers Nation. Right now he has an 18-4 touchdown interception ratio, which is still outstanding. So he's being a good decision maker. But that one game where we seen him kind of force a few passes and we were still able to come out with a W, as I keep saying every week here, we haven't seen the Steelers put together an entire 4 quarters, especially on offense, to this point, to just play complementary football. We've really, I don't want to say got lucky, but we've gotten very, we've got the ball to bounce our way in a lot of games here, and be able to have the right leadership and the right veteran status to just get there and pick up the W. Rob here posted a message on our chat. It says, is there and at what point would you consider loading, load managing Big Ben like they do in the NBA? There was a lot of talk, actually, Rob, that's a great question. This past week on the local radio stations, and a couple of news reporters put out that, I believe it was The Athletic had one, said that they believe that they should sit Big Ben no matter with his knee injury and with the COVID issues this week, that they should sit him anyway because they're 8-0 and let him have an extra week. Well, my opinion on that is, you look at the AFC. This isn't the NFC, folks. The AFC has some heavy hitters. As long as Ben is healthy, he is going to be out there. I think, if anything, the last few weeks, if we're ahead and we have a game lead on the number 1 seed, that bye is eternally very, very worthwhile for us Steelers, being that our bye weeks was switched around with the cancellation earlier with Tennessee. That apple dangling in front of us is very important, and I don't think you're going to see Tomlin pull Ben out of there unless it's a situation where we already have it well in hand. There's just too many games at stake. I think they really want to go for that bye week. I believe it was this past week on the radio as well, 93.7 The Fan. They were saying that since 2005, the number 6 seed or lower, the wild card teams, haven't won a Super Bowl. It's been more the teams that's had byes or the 1 or 2 seeds that have better chances and better odds of having the easier schedule going forward. So it's really something that, with this team and being beat up lately, we're going to definitely need, and I think that's what their topic is here, because if you lose a couple games, you still have Baltimore right in the rearview mirror. Kansas City, we all know, is high value. A lot of these other teams, Cleveland's even still in it. We have Buffalo, it's right on the heels of us for the number 1 seed. The Miami Dolphins are still at play, not for the number 1 seed, but still in the playoff picture there. They're playing good football. It's a tough way to win. You have the Tennessee Titans that are still battling, Indianapolis Colts. For me, Rob, I don't think you're going to see them take them out unless it's a Week 17, Week 16 type occurrence where we're either ahead at halftime and they try to pound the ball forcefully, save a little bit of guys, or Week 17 where maybe we already have the number 1 seed wrapped up. But even at that point, who knows? Maybe we're still undefeated and they want to go hog wild for it. But great question. Juju, we're getting back on our topic here for the Cowboys. First couple weeks in the season, everybody's like, what's the matter with Juju? He ain't putting up production. Yes, he has yet to have a 100-yard game, but he is the alpha in that room. You can see, as I said, he's genuinely happy to see guys like Claypool. You're able to see Johnson, who gets the lion's share when he's healthy of targets, even more than Claypool or Juju. get more than Juju in the entirety of the targets getting put out there by Big Ben, but he is so clutch. His game reminds me so much of Hines Ward in his prime, where he doesn't have the outstanding dynamic athleticism. He's just so savvy at getting open. He is the guy Ben looks to in clutch situations. He's one of the league leaders, I believe, in getting first downs, especially on third down possessions and in the red zone. He had 6 catches in the Cowboys game. He had just under his 100 yard, 93 yards here, and he did get that touchdown. So he's just that security blanket that he always looks to in key situations. He comes down with the combat catches. I got a huge respect for Juju, and I think, I disagree with a lot of opinions of a lot of local reporters saying that he's gone after the year. I think you're going to see concessions made that Juju is not going anywhere. I think they really want to keep that dynamic with Juju, Johnson, and Claypool. Don't want to forget about James Washington. I think you're going to see some of the older veterans go away than you do 23, 24-year-old Juju Smith-Schuster. But great work by him. We wouldn't be here if it wouldn't be for what he's doing. And Jay, my cousin Jay, man, good stuff. Will the Bengals ever learn not to mess with the Steelers' terrible towel? I don't think so. We're also talking about the organization that used to call Pac-Man and Vontaze Burfict leaders. So I will give them a little bit of credit since Marvin Lewis has left. The dirty hits and whatnot are looking like they're out of the game somewhat when we face the Bengals. But you'd think they'd learn. We do have their number, especially since Big Ben's been in there. So getting back on topic again, I can get off in tangents all day here talking about Steelers. Our rushing offense does have me concerned. And I don't know. It seems like it's a mix or match, like you're making a batch of Kool-Aid here. Really poor play calling in short yardage situations. We were 0 for 2, especially in the first half. Instead of going for a field goal, they passed up and went for a run with McFarland where they were stopped short. It was an awful play call. It just looked like there was no creativity. Then, late in the fourth quarter, to try to put it away, they tried, a very slow developing, the counter trap game that we love, getting guys out in front. James Conner was stuffed, and that's some big situations. We only had 46 yards total rushing, 2.6 yards per carry. That's not going to cut it. We're really winning because of the ability to throw the ball and our matchups outside and the talents we have at receiver. But you're not going to win a Super Bowl unless we can establish the run in some of these games. If we get into a shootout with Kansas City, it's going to come down to the running game, to where who can hold the most possession of the clock and get that one more possession than each other there. So we need guys like James Conner to step up, who's genuinely throughout the entirety of the season has looked good, not great. Benny Snell in glimpses. McFarland's getting more reps every week, but we're not sure about his status this week with an illness that he's dealing with. But it does have me concerned, not only with the running backs, but it seems like our offensive line is just not finishing their blocks in the run game. I don't know if it's due to the fact we're out shotgun the majority of the time. We haven't really lined up in single back or I formation a lot. Maybe it's also it's a lot of different ingredients. Like I said, offensive line, you've had guys in and out, guys that aren't playing at 100%. David Castro still dealing with some injuries. You have guys that are still getting acclimated to their new positions. Filer, although he's looked really good at left guard. You had one of our offseason acquisitions, Derek Watt, who by all accounts is a great ISO blocker from the fullback position. He's been out with a hamstring injury. Eric Ebron, he's adequate blocker, but Vance McDonald's really, really excelled this year out in space on those counter traps. But I'm not quite sure. It's a combination of offensive line, some tight ends, especially this week now. McDonald being out with the COVID injury reserve designation. Derek Watt has been out, like I said. And just not having one guy be the back, as I kind of been at bat for before, that you need to maybe go with the hot hand. They just haven't stuck with it, and it just seems like we need a little bit of fire lit under that offensive line. But I'm concerned. That needs to be addressed going forward, and by all accounts this week in practice, they've been focusing on it a lot. So maybe against these Bengals and their mash unit, we can get back on track. As far as targets, we talked about Juju. We all know what Claypool has done. Deontay Johnson's looking dynamic again, back being healthy. Eric Ebron, this guy, like I said, he's been adequate blocking, which to me has been an improvement over some of his previous efforts and his different stops. The effort is there. but he is a go-to target for us in the red zone, and that means the world to Ben. He loves his big targets in the end zone. You've seen the touchdown that put us ahead last week, hurdling over a guy. We haven't had athleticism at the tight end position like that since Eric Green. No offense, Heath Miller, but you ain't the same type of athlete as what Eric Ebron is. And to kind of put it in perspective, this was a stat I seen, is we're 26th in total yards in the NFL, which isn't great. We are in the bottom third of that. But our red zone efficiency, we are number 9 in the NFL. And a lot of that has to do with Chase Claypool, big target, also being creative. Eric Ebron. These guys making, Juju Smith-Schuster. The big play targets are coming through in key situations. And Eric Ebron is one of the best guys at that on this team. So big tip of the cap to him. I just wanted to throw that out here. Now we got to jump into the defensive highlights here for the Dallas game. First of all, I gotta definitely tip the cap to the captain on the defense. Cam Hayward, you are a grown man. You look like you took that guy's lunch, dinner, supper, breakfast on that bull rush of the season to basically, try to put us into a game-ending type possession on the turnover downs to Garrett Gilbert. If you guys haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It is just absolute fun football to watch. He just overwhelms that offensive lineman. So Cam Hayward, everybody talks about the season 2 it's having, Alu, which we know how well he's been playing. Cam Hayward, you can see even with that quad injury coming back, you are the heart and soul of this defense. So that's definitely a tip of the cap worthy. The next thing I want to highlight is we didn't have Tyson Alu last week. The 3-headed attack of Henry Mondu, Isaiah Buggs, even though he wasn't 100%, and this year's, I think it was 7th round draft pick, Carlos Davis. Carlos Davis, in the few amount of snaps, looked quite explosive from that nose tackle position. And they did a good job of buoying the nose tackle job there for 1 week. So great stuff. And big work there on the defensive line. It's cool to see some of the talent being developed along with these, blue chip guys that are getting the key amount of snaps. You're not missing a lot down through the rest of the roster. The depth is there, so that means a lot. Next one, T.J. Watt. You've heard me talk about the last few weeks about how dynamic he's been, as a pass rusher. He's one of the, top 3, in my opinion, in the NFL, getting after the quarterback. He seems like he's always held. Nobody's, ever getting flags thrown on him, but, that just seems like it's league-wide this year. They're kind of ignoring a lot of the holding penalties, but this game, you've seen his instincts and his ability to just adapt in the situation. Yes, he did still have a half sack. He had a half of a tackle for loss, but it was his 3 passes defense. Getting up in the throwing lanes, getting them hands up, knocking down passes in key situations. You've seen his ability to just, I'm not going to get home, get up. He almost came down with an interception in that game. Great work by him. You just see the type of player he's evolving into, and it's amazing. We're going to be worth every penny that we pay him this offseason or the next. Next up, Bud Dupree. Man, you kind of, I don't want to say disappeared or ghosted out on us. You've been playing quality run defense, but you haven't really been putting up a lot of sack totals. You've been still pushing the pocket, but haven't been getting home. But your guy that might have been drafted to replace you next year, Alex Highsmith, he's been coming along, especially in that 3 outside linebacker package. He had 3 solo tackles, a tackle for loss, a quarterback hit, and a sack last week after coming up the week before with the interception. This guy makes plays every time he's out in the field. Keith Butler has said, you only got to tell him once. You don't make the same mistake twice. This guy's a hard worker. I can't wait to see. That arrow is definitely pointing up. Can't wait to see the things to come, maybe next season or even a late season this year for him. So dynamic stuff. Tip of the cap to Highsmith. Bud Dupree, I got to see some more out of you. Vince Williams, I can't say enough about him. Oh, yeah, another 2 more tackles for loss, adding to your NFL lead. I'll just keep moving on from that because you're a stud in run defense. And Steeler Nation, Minka is back. Yes, first couple weeks we had some poor pursuit angles and tackling effort, but being the right man at the right time and the right position, he seems to be back in that type of play. He's playing at an elite level, ball hawking back there, breaking on routes, breaking up the last 2 games, the last passes and the last moments to clinch it. 6 tackles, 5 of them solo. He had 2 pass breakups. he had that interception and that key fumble recovery where it was just in the right position at the right time. He grabbed a hold of it. So good job on you, Minka. Keep it coming. I love seeing that dynamic center fielder out there, especially with Terrell Edmonds playing well now beside you. It's fun defense. I love watching the Steelers defense. It's always fun and entertaining. Now, something I got to get off my chest here, and it is our special teams. Danny Smith, you've had a rough go of it throughout your entire career of the Steelers. This past week, it was probably your worst game. Not probably. It was your worst game of the season. We all know the kicking game problems. You know, Chris Boswell, you've been great this season, but you missed an extra point. But then you also missed a field goal that you got bailed out on by a penalty that actually made it longer. And then you nailed it for the franchise record 59-yarder. But Cam Canada, what are you doing? Or the interior offensive lineman on the field goal unit, letting, guys, Crawford just come basically right through the middle like a running back in a hole, blocking field goals, just completely breaking any confidence the coaching staff has at you to complete a field goal. It showed up late in the fourth quarter where they wound up going for that dreaded fourth and short with James Conner and a slow developing counter play that he got stuffed for, that he went for it rather than going for the field goal to put him up 8. You can't make them type of decisions and live in your fears, as Tomlin always likes to say, when it comes playoff time. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to read the situation. But when it comes playoff time, we need that stuff, handled. Yes, you might have had a rough first half with somebody breaking through, but you got to adjust mid-game. Not only that, but our coverage teams, which has been very solid all year, were very concerning. We let up a long kick return on a pooch punt or pooch kick with a lot of the air underneath. We let a long return there. We had the punt return that was more of a trick play, the throw across to Mel Blount's favorite, C.J. Godwin, who was a Steeler one-time tryout player, and the misdirection, throwback, punt return for a long gain. We can't have that type of blips in the long term. So you guys got to tighten it down. I know it'll probably be addressed this week, but it was concerning not to be able to see it mid-game adjusted, or at least, get the tablet out and say, hey, Crawford's done the same thing all game, breaking through the gaps right there by the long snapper. We need to adjust, or whatever means necessary. It just cannot happen that many times. So get it tightened up. That's all I'm going to say about the field goal unit and all the special teams, especially because the rest of the year and McLeod and everybody, you've done quality work. So one game, we still got the W, but come playoff time, you can't win like that. All right, our next topic here on the Prelude. I kind of touched on it already. The Steelers are getting their first taste of the COVID, issues this year with the injured reserve and guys getting tested positive. We know last week Vance McDonald was out with an illness on Friday, practiced, then got tested negative. Then he wound up getting placed on the COVID list right away on Monday. He did test positive. Contact tracing put 4 other guys on the injured reserve list. None other than the guy that sits right next to him in the locker room, Big Ben, Gerald Hawkins, Jalen Samuels, which Jalen Samuels, I guess, could have been the worst guy to put on there. But the other guy that's most concerning, Vince Williams, one of these guys, the bread and butter of the defense. It was kind of a weird list there, but today on Saturday they did activate all 4 players outside of Vance McDonald. He, being that he tested positive, is going to have to be quarantined for, I believe it's 10 or 14 days, I think it's 3 straight negative results before he can return to the team. That's going to be a huge blow in the blocking department for them counter trap plays, like I said. So we're going to have to see a lot more Zach Gentry. Maybe we'll see the other tight end brought up from the practice squad. So it's just going to be an interesting dynamic. It's going to be a key thing that we have Derek Watt healthy for this game, because you might see him in there a lot more, maybe in an H-back role, being that McDonald is out. So this is kind of disgusting. Not only that, we had 2 guys this week get held out of practice for illness reasons. Anthony McFarland, like I said, the young rookie running back, he was out 2 straight days. Then late addition on Friday, Kevin Dotson was out with an illness. Right here before I jumped on live with you guys, there was breaking news that he was placed on the COVID reserve list, so he must have tested positive, or was close to, maybe McFarland or McDonald. and he's been placed on that reserve list. They brought up Antoine Brooks Jr. To the active roster to fill his spot, but so now we're actually down 2 guys. Kevin Dotson, who's been really impressive on his thing in his season so far, but it was nice to see that the 4 guys did get activated, as we need Big Ben in this game, and Hawkins going to play a key role as long as he's able to get into his regular amount of snaps as that big body tight end on the line, especially with Hawkins out, or McDonald out. Maybe he sees an increase in snaps like Watt. Jalen Samuels, you might see him get more blocking duty. But Vince Williams and Big Ben are the ones, and being their veterans, they really didn't need the snaps per se. But Big Ben especially, I think him not taking the reps this week helped his knee out in the big time. So the mental reps are there. The missed practice time, I don't think it's going to be that big a deal, being that he's a 17-year vet. But there was some news there for you guys. Also, last topic here on the Prelude is I gotta throw out the quote Big Ben did after this past game with the Cowboys. We all know the facade that they throw out there as America's team, but this is just for you, Steeler Nation. I had to throw this quote out there. Big Ben, being quoted, said, "I'm not trying to take any shots, anybody, but if you didn't know who America's team was, you should have seen the stands last week. All the terrible towels that were there in Dallas, which it was amazing. You could actually hear them as they're trying to get 25,000 there in Jerry World. Dallas may be America's team," Ben says, "but we'll be the world's team." And I think you can take that to the cleaner. So Big Ben sets the record straight. Dallas might be America's team, but we all know who the world's team is, and that is none other than the black and gold. So, all right, that wraps up my prelude portion of it. The sermon portion of this, the sermon session, we're going to get into something similar. Last week I did my superlatives, wrapping it up and updating them who I think midseason is. This week we're going to take more of a deep dive. Excuse me, I get a sip here. For me, the positional report cards here. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with the time I have here. And we're going to give them A, B, C type grades, maybe a D if they've been really terrible, but it's kind of hard to pick a D whenever you're 8-0. So, coaching staff. Coaching staff for me deserves an A-. The only reason they get an A- is some of the situations, like last week with our special teams ability, you're not able to overcome a continual problem. Also, the punting type issues we've had on the special teams. That's really the only knock that I give them, so I don't want to go a lot below A, so it's an A- with an 8-0 team, because Mike Tomlin has come up in big situations, especially the ability to make adjustments at halftime and come back has been key to being 8-0 this season. Quarterbacks, I'm going with an A. It could have been an A+ because we are 8-0, but A is the only reason is Big Ben's deep ball. It's just not there. He has the arm strength, but it's just disconnected with the timing. Ball placement, accuracy is not there. You know, maybe it's like a pitcher coming back from Tommy John where the breaking ball's, just a little bit off. You always go for the fastball placement, but the breaking ball always is the touch and the feel and the accuracy is always one of the last things to come back from a pitcher with Tommy John. Maybe this is similar with Ben having, all the ligaments reattached. This little bit of ball placement and accuracy is the last thing to come back, but it will come back, Steelers Nation. So that's the only reason he doesn't get an A+. Also, a reason why it's an A is because the one series we've seen Mason Rudolph. Hold your breath, Steelers Nation. Let's not hope we have to see Mason Rudolph on the field. All right, moving on. Running back position, you're getting a B-. I could have rated you at a C here because the last 2 to 3 weeks were quite ugly with the output you've been putting out. But we got to remember earlier in the season, I think it was 3 or 4 straight weeks that we had 100-yard rushers, even though it wasn't the same guys, Connor, Snell. But they did put up some consistency earlier. So it's there. It's just, are we getting back on track with that? So B-. I also think this is the one position group you might see the most upside going forward, because I think late in the season you're going to see them, not take Connor out of key situations, but as we've already seen the last 2 weeks, as long as he's healthy, McFarland is going to get a key role going forward. We already have seen Snell take more of a workload in the red zone. Connor's getting more between the 20 and the 20 marks of the field. But I think they really want to see that explosiveness by McFarland in the open field. So keep an eye on that into the last If we get to the report cards at the end of the year, this group might be up in the A- range if a lot of guys hit on all cylinders going forward. Now, the wide receiver position, A- as well for me, and the only reason they're not an A or an A+ is because the amount of injuries that Deontay Johnson is dealt with. He always seems like he's nicked. I love this guy's game when he's healthy and when he's on the field. Nobody can keep with him. He's one of the best route runners in his first 2 years. It reminds me so much of a young Antonio Brown. I know we've tossed out that comparison a lot of times. But his ability to get in and out of his breaks, create separation, and then in the field just make guys miss and make them not only miss but look foolish whenever they're out there. So he's been dynamic with his targets. Chase Claypool, I think we all figured he was going to be good in a role, but we didn't think he was going to be this good. So really that development, Juju's right there being a solid player. You have Johnson's a dynamic playmaker. And then, by the way, don't forget about James Washington, who's come down with a couple touchdown catches and is a force after the catch, combat situations down the field. The one thing was the injuries. That's the reason why we don't see, we don't have one receiver really on track to be breaking over 1,200 yards, 1,000 yards. And that's okay as long as the entirety of the group is all getting their targets. I forget the stat where it was, but I think the Steelers are one of the only teams in the NFL to have 4 guys over 300 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns this year. So you can kind of see the diversity in this offense coming to play, and it is amazing going forward. The tight ends. The tight ends this year, I'm giving a B+. A lot of it's just because the inconsistency of you really have 2 guys doing 1 or 2 things. You have Ebron being the pass catcher, and then you have McDonald being the blocker. So you don't have that versatility per se. They both can do the different things, but not as well. And really, when McDonald's in the game, you kind of can tip your hand in knowing it's going to be a running play. If Ebron's in the play, he's okay blocking, and he's been adequate, but he's really going to be your pass catching guy. So for me, that's the reason why they get a B+, because Ebron's effectiveness as a blocker has been better than what I thought. His red zone, as I touched upon earlier, red zone, presence is there. It's helped our efficiency there. But Vance McDonald really has been, not a factor in the passing game. And those are the only 2 guys we talk about. We kind of figure I can lump in Derek Watt with the tight ends. Derek Watt hasn't been available. He's really, at this point, been, don't want to say wasted money, but he hasn't been worth what we paid him. As a player on the field. When he's been on the field, he's been great, but we really haven't got a lot of production out of the tight end position. Zach Gentry's been a non-factor. You're going to see him probably this week get more snaps than any other time this year because McDonald being out. But really, to me, it's just more of a tipping the hand type thing, and that's why they get a B+. But the red zone efficiency has been there, and McDonald's run blocking skills have been up there. So I didn't want to just completely ixnay the whole thing, but there can be improvements here as well. The offensive tackle position, and this one's a hard one, kind of get a full grasp on it. Alejandro Villanueva has been playing quite well at the left tackle position. I don't know what the future holds for him going forward to next year. He is due for a new contract. He's been playing really well in the pass protection, but as far as run blocking, he's, I think, one of the main culprits in why we've been getting that penetration, not been able to hold his blocks a long time. But he is one of the leaders in that locker room. He's really risen a bunch above where everybody thinks his play would ever made it to. He has great athleticism for a left tackle. We know he used to be a receiver at Army and a defensive end with Philadelphia. But this guy, he's getting better with age and experience. And he's really a young, I believe, 32 years old, 31 or 32 years old. So I wouldn't be surprised if they can be amicable to a short-term deal with not a ridiculous amount of money. I could see them wanting to keep him because he's one of them leaders. But I'm not quite sure that Villanueva is one of them guys that wants to play into his mid to late 30s, because I think he has a lot of things he wants to do outside of the football realm. But I do respect him, and with this past week being Veterans Day, I thank you for your service, Alejandro. You are one of the heroes, the real heroes that are out there in this world. Chuks Okorafor has been playing out of his mind at right tackle, and in my opinion, I think he's the guy they're looking to be able to shed some salary if they're not amicable to a shorter, lower-term deal with Villanueva. I think they're looking to flip him to left tackle next year because he's been playing quite well. He shut down quite a quite the array of pass rushers there at right tackle since Banner went down. And I think that's what they're kind of tracking. I think that's why Banner won that job early out of training camp, is they wanted Banner to establish himself at right tackle, let Okorafor be the swing, and then move right into left tackle next year. I think they were going to target Banner for a long-term deal because of the way he's transformed his body. And in the one game he played this year, he's playing quite well, especially in the running game. I think back now, the issues we're having with the running game, if we would have had old Big Zach out at right tackle, I think we would have been playing, the running game a lot better here on offense. But to me, this is an A situation. Banner played well. Chuks Okorafor has been playing out of his mind. Villanueva has been playing great in pass protection. Maybe not so in run blocking, but high quality. You're keeping your franchise quarterback safe, and that's what a tackle's job really is. But A work right there. Interior offensive line. This is where I'm giving them more of a B+, and more it's just for injuries and just uncertainty, not being able to get a lot of cohesion going there. We know DeCastro's been out a few different times. We had the great play of Kevin DeCastro when he's been out in the field. He's really a future dynamic presence for this offensive line. You see his movement ability at the line of scrimmage, also short trapping game, pass protection. He was one of the best pass protecting guards in all the NFL while he was getting regular snaps. I think he's going to make Filer more of the expendable one than anything. But they're getting a B+ mostly because I think the missed time is what's causing this offense to just not get that push at the line of scrimmage in a running game. And Marquise Pouncey is great at the pivot position. He's been playing really well this year, especially with Filer getting him settled in at left guard and being able to get a guy like Dotson up to speed quickly. So it's hard to give these guys a B+, but in my opinion, I think with just so many injuries and the missed time, not having the gelling type effect, I have to give them that B+. Can't put them in the A direction here, especially with the struggles we've had in the running game. So B+ in my opinion, because they have played well in pass protection. It's just the running game needs to improve, especially from the interior. Now, jumping into the edge portion of this, I don't think I can give these guys anything less than an A, especially with TJ Watt on one side playing some of the best ball of his career, and that's hard to say because every year it seems like he's getting better and better. But to me, it's the combination of Highsmith and Dupree. If this was only Dupree, I think it would have been closer to a B+, because I don't think the production was there as Dupree as it has been with Highsmith and Dupree combined here in these three outside linebacker combinations that we've seen. So Highsmith has been playing out of his mind, especially for a rookie. Dupree has been a great run stuffer, also been pushing the pocket. His sack numbers, it could be a little better than what they are right now, but this edge group is playing quite out of their mind. So it is an A for all three of those guys. Also, don't forget Ola Adeniyi. He's played a key role in special teams, but also has looked quite impressive in the few amount of snaps that he's got. Interior defensive line, A+. These guys, I cannot knock at all. Yes, Tyson Alu has missed one game, but when he's been on the field, he has been an absolute force at the nose tackle position. We have not missed Javon Hargrave one bit, and that's something to say because I loved Javon Hargrave's game when he was here. Cam Hayward is getting better with age. Glad we paid him and is able to keep him here. Stephon Tuitt he's on his way to double-digit sacks. Not only that, but now we see the depth coming up behind them. Henry Mondeau, the energy he brings to the field, a la a young Brett Kiesel, he reminds me of. Maybe even playing fullback like he did a few weeks ago. Carlos Davis looked impressive in his few snaps. Isaiah Buggs made a couple key plays, especially helping punch the ball out against Lamar Jackson. We're really six deep here, and to me, this group has got depth, got talent at the top, and being able to rotate guys, let a guy like Alu get right with an MCL sprain, and have three-headed monster be able to combat it. Mixing in with our nickel fronts and having two down linemen with the edge rushers. These guys have been playing out of their mind, both in the run game and pass rush, so I can't knock them at all. A+, it's probably one of the best position groups we have on this entire team, and they've been playing quite well. The linebacker position, and specifically inside linebacker, I'm giving them a B+. Most of this is for the benefactor of Vince Williams, who leads the league in tackles for loss. Has been a force, tone setter there in between the tackles. But also, I got to throw out there Mick Spillane. Robert Spillane, this guy, everybody's trying to write him off for Avery Williamson, which I don't want to knock Avery Williamson. I love his play. I'm glad we got him. But Mickey Spillane, as they like to call him, this guy has been making all the play calls. He's made plays when he has there. Yes, he's not the dynamic athlete as Devin Bush is. Nobody is. I'm sorry. Unless you're Devin White or Bobby Okereke or Darius Leonard, you're not going to have that type of speed there. To be able to have a guy step in and the level of play not really fall off. Yes, Devin Bush is a better sideline-to-sideline aggressor. Yes, maybe he would have tracked down J.K. Dobbins for a 10-yard gain instead of a 25-yard gain the other week. But this guy, when the ball's coming his way, he's been very, adept in pass coverage, getting his depth. Willie Snead kind of got behind him on one play, but he made a pick six. He's very timely in his pursuits. He's a sure tackler. He's there all the time around the ball. Plus now we get Avery Williamson as well to add to this. It's a great group of guys. It's a B+ for me because Vince Williams, with all his tackles for loss, he has missed quite a few many tackles, but he makes up for it in his big-time play. So I can't knock him too much. But the playmaking ability, even after Devin Bush going out, says a lot about the way these guys are prepared. We haven't seen the drop-off. A lot of people were, kind of thinking we were gonna. So B+ in my opinion here. Next up, the positional group is the cornerback position. This, guys, this is one of the position groups I got to pick on a little bit. Cam Sutton has taken that next step forward. Mike Hilton, when he's been healthy, played great. But Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson, Joe Hayden, you are what you are at this point. I love you. I'm so glad that you're on the Steelers roster, but your long speed is not there no more. You get by on savvy and technical abilities. You understand how to diagnose a play. You get there when you need to. You keep the plays in front of you, which is great. But in the long term, I am concerned if we play against a Tyreek Hill type player, we are going to get torched because we don't have that cornerback with the length to combat either the speed differential or we just don't have the straight line speed to keep with these guys. So that's an issue I think coming forward, especially Steven Nelson. Yes, he is the leader on the team with 2 interceptions, but that came in one game. A lot of the other games he's been targeted. He's been giving up a lot more catches this year than he has last year, and he just hasn't looked as prepared and as solid as in years previous. So Steven Nelson, if you ratchet up another couple intensities going forward, this is going to be one of them position groups too. At the end of the year, maybe we see it pointing up, but right now, due to the injuries of Mike Hilton and the poor play of Nelson at times and Joe Hayden at times looking like he hasn't been able to carry guys down the field, I'm giving you guys a C at this point. So you guys need to step it up just a little bit. The safety group. And this is a hard group. I had to really take a look at the full scheme of the first half. You guys are getting a B+. Terrell Edmonds, you've been playing great football, very assignment sound. You've been really a tight end eraser this year, taking them out of the equation with some of these other guys in bracket coverage or one-on-one. You're a very short tackler, especially you take great pursuit angles and run support. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, the first few weeks, I couldn't overlook the missed tackles, the poor effort, the pursuit angles. But the last few weeks have improved. So, I think you're that guy the last few weeks. I just think you had a rough few weeks getting acclimated to the season, the way it's taking its toll of preparation. But I'm giving you guys a B+ at this point. I think, this is very close to being an A- with the last few weeks away. Minkah's been really shutting out games. And Terrell Edmonds, like I said, by all accounts, has been absolutely solid this year. Cannot complain one bit about him. Now, we're getting into the special teams portion, the kicking game. Boswell, you're getting a B because you've missed a few point-after attempts. You had the field goal blocked, but you did come through in clutch situations, so I can't knock you and give you a C. So B, you've been solid. I don't worry about it so much. As long as we get the ball down, I think you'll put it through the pipes. Now, the punting situation is a different fact. Dustin Colquitt, I loved you. I loved that addition. Didn't work out. Thanks for your service. I wish we could do better than Jordan Berry. I know some people are like, yeah, give him a break. No, I seen Jordan Berry last year and what he did when it comes situations in the cold and in December. I don't have a lot of confidence in him going forward. He seems like he can pin people down and also hit one booming punt a game, but the consistency just ain't there. So for me, if I was the Steelers front office, I'd be still working in the workouts to find my punter, Marquette King still out there, XFL legend, St. Louis Battlehawks, and former Oakland Raider punter that has a booming leg. And I just think we can do better. Or maybe we could coax old, I'm losing his name now. Wow, that's terrible. Pat McAfee. Maybe we can coax Pat McAfee out to play for his hometown team. I'd love to see it. Go get a ring and then retire again back to his show. So I give you guys a D at this point for punting. Strictly off the punter. The coverage teams have been playing great, but the punters have been awful this year. Also, one of the other guys I'm pointing the finger at as well, and I think the last few years, I don't think they've been completely sold on Cam Canada, the long snapper. He's had some high snaps, some bobbles, and he hasn't been there as well. So don't be surprised next year you see another person at the long snapper position that would maybe get some play of taking that job for a rookie contract. Last position group, return specialist, A+. I don't know when the last time as a Steeler fan or anybody in Steeler Nations can say we got an A+ for a return specialist. Deontay Johnson early made us a little sketchy, broke one play, but no, now it's been the Ray McLeod show, and what a presentation he has put out there. He just always seems like he's a big play waiting to happen, makes guys miss, puts us in great field position. He's a great player that we were able to bring in late in training camp. Loved that they went with him, and now you see with a world champion caliber roster that we have that on special teams. So you really see on this 8-0 team, there was hard to find a lot of position groups below that B to B- mark. Really, it was just the cornerbacks and more the punters' duties that were falling below that threshold. And it's going to be hard going forward as long as we stay at this level and injuries don't beset us, that we can't maintain this pace going forward, especially where the coaching and the preparation has taken place. So that ends our sermon portion of this. Now we're going to get into the final portion of the show, and it is the Week 10 preview, Steeler Nation. We are 8-0 at this point. We're going forward to see if we can march through at a home game here against the Cincinnati Bengals in Heinz Field at 4:25. Make sure you tune in on Fox because that's where it is, not CBS this week. At 4:25, they'll be coming in out of the tunnel at Heinz Field with a small group of fans out there. I hope to hear them just like we did last week in Dallas. But we do have a lengthy injury report as we kick this off. The Steelers have 4 guys that are questionable. Isaiah Buggs was questionable with his ankle. He had limited practices late in the week. Tyson Alualu got in a full practice. He has no injury designation, so he is on track to start. So don't be surprised if you see, they maybe flip the script now and give Buggs a week off and not get a hat. Let that ankle get healed up with Mondo and Carlos Davis backing up Alualu to it, and also Hayward. Mike Hilton is questionable with his shoulder. He got a full practice in on Wednesday, but then it fell back to limited both on Thursday and Friday. There was a report earlier, I believe it was Jeremy Fowler threw it out there. It said that he is trending in the wrong direction. I think that has a lot to do with Joe Mixon not playing, because we know how aggressive that Mike Hilton is in the tackling department, that they may be giving him a little bit of extra rest here, being that we've seen Sutton really take the next step with that playing time. I think they're going to give him another week. So those first 2 guys, I think, are trending in the wrong direction. I don't think they'll be active tomorrow. Anthony McFarland, as I said, has been dealing with an illness the last 2 weeks, a la the Vance McDonald situation. He's questionable. I would not expect him to be on the field, especially since Mike Tomlin has put it out there that the last, yesterday at least, that he told both Kevin Dotson and McFarland not to even come. I believe it was the last 2 days, both of them guys, at least McFarland the last 2 days. Yesterday it was Kevin Dotson as well included in there, that they were asked not to even come to the facility for any treatment or anything, to just stay home. So that you really kind of get the idea that maybe one or both of them, as I already said, Dotson was placed on the COVID injured reserve list, and Antoine Brooks was elevated to the active roster. So both of them guys I don't think you'll see. So we're going to see 4 of the inactives right there. Big Ben didn't have a designation, but being that he was activated off the COVID list, he is good to go. He didn't have a designation, but he did have that knee injury. Also another guy we got to throw out there, Derek Watt, who wasn't active last week, even though he didn't have a designation on the injury report, and full practice last week. He is good to go and also doesn't have a designation this week, so he will probably have to be playing a lot of snaps this week with McDonald being out as well. The Cincinnati Bengals, Geno Atkins, their longtime feared pass rusher inside, who's this year has been more relegated to a rotational role, is out due to personal reasons. Also, their right tackle, Bobby Hart, which might be a good or bad thing because he was the human turnstile at right tackle, is out with a knee injury. Cornerback Darius Phillips, who's really taken a lot more snaps this year, he's out. He was actually placed on injured reserve with a groin injury. John Ross as well with a foot injury is out. LaShawn Sims, one of their other cornerbacks, has a concussion. He is out. Their star running back, Joe Mixon, with a foot, who hasn't played in quite a few many weeks, didn't practice this week other than maybe off to the side and some individual stuff. Very light type work. With a foot injury, he is doubtful. I would not expect him to play at all. Jonah Williams, their left tackle, who had suffered a stinger last week, he is questionable, but by all accounts, he's on target to play. So they will probably have their left tackle there, keeping their young franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow, trying to keep him upright there with his vaunted Steelers pass rush. All right, that was the injury report session of it. Now we're getting into going for three. The three storylines we're looking at here. First off, how much will the COVID layoffs affect the players that were on the list? Big Ben, Vince Williams, I'm not so concerned with them. We know they're veterans. They're, double-digit guys. They've been in this playbook. They don't need practice reps. They'll be able to step in. The only one is maybe Vince Williams maybe rotates out a little bit more with Avery Williamson this week, being that he got the live reps in practice. Jalen Samuels, maybe we see him have a few more snaps on third downs, being that McFarland's going to be out. But don't sleep on Trey Edmonds, who was re-signed after release last week, pick up some snaps there. Also, Gerald Hawkins, I think you're going to see him activated, on the active roster and given a hat just because of McDonald being out and him being that extra lineman in certain packages to block. I think we'll see him in his regular amount of plays. But more than anything, I think it's Vance McDonald. Him being gone and not having a chance to play here because he tested positive, it's putting pressure solely on the shoulders of Zach Gentry. We're going to see the progress that he's made in the weight room and on the blocking sled, and it's going to be a key test to our depth there at the tight end position. Maybe we see Kevin Rader activated as well from the practice squad, former Youngstown State player there as well. Second storyline, can Steelers contain the impressive wide receiver trio the Bengals have? Joe Burrow, by all accounts, has looked like a money number one pick. He is on pace to break Andrew Luck's rookie season passing yardage record. And his trio of targets, even though A.J. Green is looking a little old and at times uninterested, he still can make plays with his dynamic ability. But Tyler Boyd, who's coming somewhat of a homecoming here from Clareton, he's one of the best slot receivers in the game. We all know Joe Burrow from his time at LSU made a lot of money with Justin Jefferson from the slot. He looks to Tyler Boyd a lot. That's going to be a dynamic matchup we got to watch. So Cam Sutton, that's going to be an interesting facet with him. Also, T. Higgins from Clemson. He has been a monster this year. Has caught quite a few many touchdown passes and big plays. It's going to be interesting to see who they're going to match up with him, if it's going to be Hayden or if it's going to be Nelson. Or are we going to see maybe Justin Lane get some snaps, the tall, lanky corner from Michigan State, who's really been biding his time on basically kickoff and coverage teams, but got some snaps so far in the base defense with some of the injuries to Hilton and whatnot. So maybe we see him on third downs come in and shadow T. Higgins, being that he's the best, constructed-wise, height, weight, speed type player to trail him. Also, it's just going to be interesting to see if the Steelers' corners will be able to have their hands full if that offensive line, which has played better the last few weeks, can hold up. So if the edge rushers and the pressure up the middle don't get home, Joe Burrow's one of the better ones to get the ball out early if he recognizes the coverage pre-snap. If not, he has to hold on the ball, then the pass rush is going to be there. But if he's getting that ball out early and often, this cornerbacks and the secondary might have some issues going forward. Final storyline we're looking at here. Can the Steelers' offense carve up at suspect Bengals defense. I already talked about Atkins not playing. We've seen Carlos Dunlap, who was one of the, in the last 10 years of playing the Steelers, has always been a thorn in our side. Mike Tomlin referenced it at his press conference. They're not sad to see him go because he always seemed to be batting down passes or causing interceptions against the Steelers. This defense is not good at the Cincinnati Bengals. They allow 26.8 points per game. They allow over 400 yards per game. And not only that, in a key area to be looking at in this matchup, they're extremely thin at cornerback. I talked about LaShawn Sims being out. Also, what was the other? Darius Phillips from Western Michigan, who's out with a groin injury and on IR now. They really only have 3 healthy cornerbacks with William Jackson, Mackenzie Alexander, and also Tony Brown, who's only played a handful of snaps in the NFL, actually on defense. That, to me, is a glaring mismatch, especially with the variety of weapons we have on offense. So as much as we want to get the running game going, I think we need to establish it early and play action off of it, and then go, no huddle, spread the ball out with only the limited amount of resources they have in the secondary. So are we going to be able to carve up that defense? Boy, I hope so, especially with the distinct advantages we have in few position groups. Now, 3 matchups to watch that we're going into this game. Big Ben, no practice time against one of the better ball-hawking safeties in Jesse Bates out there at free safety for the Cincinnati Bengals. That is the one place in the secondary you got to watch is the safeties there. Him and Von Bell is quite the combination. Left tackle Villanueva, we talked about how well he's been doing pass protection. Well, he's going to be getting a test this week. Carl Lawson has been pretty dynamic for this defense, getting pressures at a high rate. Maybe not sacks, but pressures. He's been pushing the pocket for a lot of quarterbacks here. So Carl Lawson, who I've always been a fan of, against Villanueva. And then our final matchup is T.J. Watt at his left outside linebacker position against, most likely, being that Bobby Hart is out. We're not sure if Fred Johnson, the old Steelers undrafted free agent, who is on their COVID-19 list, if he's going to get activated and be able to play on Sunday. If so, he'll probably be the right tackle. If not, I have a feeling we're going to see Akeem Adeniji from Kansas be the right tackle. He did get a start at left tackle, looked pretty solid. I know the coaching staff is high on him. If he brings his A game, this is going to be a difficult matchup for Watt because he's a long-armed, pretty quick-footed and swift-footed tackle. But Watt's one of the best with his get-off that we see in the game. So that's going to be a matchup to watch. If Adeniji's just able to buoy, that's going to be good for the Bengals defense or Bengals offense, especially with Burrow probably going to try to get the ball out early. So maybe we see Watt jumping up the line of scrimmage as he did last week with the Cowboys. We all know Watt. He adapts his game. He's like a predator. Final thing here. 3 things the Steelers must do to get that W. We're going to get the Jameis Winston, eat the W this week. Jack Burswell, that's just for you, buddy. We got to pound Joe Burrow. Not only hit him early, hit him often. We got to put him on the ground, make sure that he knows he's playing an AFC North division rival, and make sure that he knows he's going to be black and blue the next game. So we want him to hold the ball. We got to get coverage early so that we can make him take that extra second or two to let them get home. Number 2, find some semblance of a running game and be able to ease Ben into the play calling throughout the second half. As we've seen the last 2 games, second half has always been better football for the Steelers. But we really, I think in this case, more than anything, with a defense as suspect as they are, we need to get that running game going early and then let him attack that distinct advantage with the cornerbacks. Final thing, and this is always a backbreaker for Steelers against teams like the Dallas Cowboys last week and now this week, do not turn the ball over. That is the great equalizer with a team like us that's 8-0 against a team that we have a distinct advantage about. Do not turn that ball over. If you turn the ball over, you give them more opportunities. They get a paycheck as well. Joe Burrow is an impressive rookie. They have targets. Like I said, that wide receiver core is one of the better ones in the NFL, especially when they're all hitting on all cylinders. So do not turn that ball over. Pound them early, pound them often. Let's go. Prediction. Pittsburgh Steelers 26, Cincinnati Bengals 17. I think a lot of them 17s are garbage time points. I hope we get in an early and often rut here. I hope we see some play action and maybe a deep bomb to Claypool off that established run game in the first half. So that's it for episode 17, Steelers Nation. I appreciate you stopping in. As always, make sure it is the time coming here. We have Thanksgiving first, which I'm very thankful for each and every one of you listeners that are out there every week. But Christmas time is also coming as well. Make sure you get, for your football fan this year, go to blitzalytics.com/shop. Get your hardback copy. This one right here, $35. Has all 32 teams. You want them. You need to know all 22 players of the last 3 draft classes that are affecting here. Not only you'll use this year, you'll also use it next year. Oh, and by the way, we're still in the works of making this next year happen. So go get your copy for Christmas, $35. If you want the PDF, the full PDF, it's only $15. If you want just the team, maybe it's your team. Maybe it's next week's opponent. Maybe you need to know some of them guys for your fantasy matchup. Go drop $5 on it on blitzalytics.com/shop. You want to go get that. You will not be sorry that I gave you that information. And thank you, Jay, for the compliment there. Another shot at Jack Bourgeois on the Steel City Sermon. This show is not amateur hour. I try not to, but I am not Rob either. And he has hooked me up, made me look way smarter than I always am. If you have any questions or you want to have a comment thrown out there for next week's episode, hit up the show's Twitter at Steel City Sermon. My Twitter, as always, if you need to hit me up on it, is at PreacherBoyRoy. I try to get back to you as soon as possible. And as always, guys, as I like to end my shows, stay humble and be a blessing.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh do this all the time. I've been playing them for 13 years. When you avoid the middle, they go into the middle. It's never changed.
For my life from the long arm of the Lord.